fight the world's been waiting for. Paul.
This may be it! Oh!
Who's doing more than me?
Versus Mike Tyson, the baddest.
In a lackluster attempt to build excitement for the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson showdown, the press conference did nothing but disappoint, leaving fans frustrated and uninterested. Instead of a gripping, suspense-filled event, what unfolded was an awkward exchange, where the legendary Mike Tyson barely muttered a word, while Jake Paul's desperate attempts to stir up drama fell flat.
And you didn't answer.
And you're sitting here disrespecting Mike Tyson to his face once again.
Tyson, once the epitome of boxing ferocity, appeared shockingly apathetic, as if he'd rather be anywhere else. His quiet, disengaged demeanor made it clear that he had little interest in hyping the fight.
Going through your mind, is the old Mike back? Is vintage?
And his notorious intensity was nowhere to be seen. Where was the once feared baddest man on the planet? Watching him sit there, barely responding to questions, was more painful than any punch thrown in the ring. Tyson's presence seemed more like an obligation than a genuine commitment, disappointing fans who had hoped to see even a hint of the fighter he once was. Meanwhile, Jake Paul tried and failed to carry the press conference with his usual brash, trash-talking antics. He came off as desperate, practically begging for a reaction from Tyson, who remained unshakable and, quite frankly, uninterested. Paul's attempts at showmanship only highlighted the gulf in authenticity between the two men. Tyson didn't need to prove himself, and that lack of energy showed that he had no interest in playing into Paul's theatrics. El Gallo calling out Tyson for being boring.
It's pretty boring, pretty fucking boring.
Highlighted the reality of this press conference. It was a sham. Boring is putting it lightly. Fans had tuned in expecting fireworks, anticipating that this press conference would serve as the perfect appetizer for the main event. Instead, they received a dull, awkward exchange that did little to stoke any genuine interest in the fight. Watching two fighters on opposite ends of the spectrum, one past his prime and seemingly apathetic, the other painfully trying to prove he's more than a YouTube sensation, was both cringeworthy and disheartening. This press conference was less of a spectacle and more of a tedious reminder that hype without substance is hollow. Tyson's silence spoke volumes. He seemed indifferent, detached, and frankly, above the whole ordeal. One couldn't help but question his motivation for even stepping into the ring with Paul in the first place. Tyson's lack of engagement didn't signal quiet confidence, but rather a total lack of interest. And for Jake Paul, a fighter who has always thrived on controversy, Tyson's disinterest was a slap in the face, a reminder that his carefully constructed persona and trash talk couldn't provoke the boxing legend. The whole event reeked of desperation. Paul's career has always hinged on his ability to rile up opponents and fans alike, but Tyson's lack of reaction left him grasping at straws. It was as though Tyson, intentionally or not, was exposing the emptiness of Paul's shtick, showing the world that it takes more than a loud mouth and flashy insults to become a respected fighter. Tyson's subdued presence only highlighted the superficiality of Paul's brand, revealing a man with no real way to back up his bravado when faced with a disinterested legend. For fans of Tyson, watching their idol reduced to this quiet, almost timid figure was heartbreaking. This was a man who once instilled fear in the hearts of his opponents, who had a presence so commanding that it didn't matter what he said.
I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious.
But in this press conference, he was a shell of his former self, a ghost of the ferocious champion he once was. Tyson's energy, or lack thereof, was more of an insult to boxing than anything Jake Paul could ever attempt to muster. As the press conference dragged on, it became painfully clear that this fight was more about a money grab than any genuine sporting event. The whole affair was a thinly veiled attempt to capitalize on Tyson's legacy and Paul's internet notoriety. It was a clash not of fighting styles, but of hype versus history, a gaudy spectacle dressed up as a fight. The public could see through the charade. There was no authenticity here, only a strained attempt to fabricate excitement where there was none. This press conference served as a reminder of everything wrong with modern boxing. Rather than focusing on skilled, dedicated athletes, the spotlight was on a YouTuber-turned-boxer and a retired legend who, frankly, had no business stepping back into the ring. Tyson's subdued demeanor hinted at a reluctance that felt almost tragic, as though he was aware of the farce but bound by the spectacle. Paul's insistent antagonism felt hollow, a hollow attempt at capturing the raw, visceral energy of true boxing rivalries. Ultimately, this press conference was an exercise in futility. There was no passion, no rivalry, no genuine tension, only a painfully one-sided attempt by Paul to generate buzz, met with Tyson's silent disinterest. It was an insult to boxing fans who had tuned in, hoping for a taste of the old Tyson fire or some form of compelling rivalry. Instead, they got awkward silence, forced bravado, and a stale atmosphere that made the whole event feel like a colossal waste of time. If this press conference was meant to sell the fight, it failed spectacularly. Rather than building anticipation, it served as a warning sign for what's to come, a fight devoid of real stakes, where the only outcome is financial gain for those involved. For fans of the sport, this was a sobering reminder that boxing's golden days are long gone, replaced by meaningless spectacles that prioritize publicity over passion, fame over skill,